Welcome, Freedom Fighter 1776, the podcast. I'm your host, Mark Charles Bashaw. We've got another episode today, folks, talking to a freedom fighter, a reprimando backstage in the studio. But before I get to that, I want to talk about the PURGE codes for my military service members out there and for the public in general. When you leave military service, you get what's called a DD-214, and on that DD-214 is a code and a narrative on why you were discharged. And for us COVID purged officers, our purge code was JNC, Juliet November Charlie, unacceptable conduct. And that's the purge code that we got on all of our DD-214s when they purged us from the military. For enlisted, I believe it was I'd have to, we can go find that out for you, but I believe it was JNB or JNQ or something like that. But I'm going to pull up a post right now, and if you're curious about the purge codes, you can go to this account and check out what this individual has posted publicly. Let me just share this real quick. So Joseph Warren, let's see his account real quick. So Joseph Warren, founding martyr, at Marty Joseph 1776. I might happen to know who this individual is. It sure sounds like a Major Mike Gary from the Maine National Guard. I cannot confirm that, but it sounds like him. But that's besides the point. Check this video out, folks.
Alrighty, you vax refusers, you criminals. This is the memorandum that got it all going. Secretary of the Army, Washington, 31 Jan of 2022, okay? And in this, there's not a lot of description, but it gets it going, gets the ball moving. Hey, we're definitely going to do something about these people, okay? There's nothing specific other than it states this is going to be misconduct. It's not until this Army Alarak message, okay, that says 009 of 2022, and you can see the date here of it in February of 2022. So we're moving along really quickly. This message starts getting the administrative people going on how they're going to purge us, okay? And then if I go here to this page, and I'm only going to concentrate on officers because I don't have enough time to do the enlisted, but yours is exactly the same. So these are the receipts for commissioned officers and warrant officers, all right? You go down a few paragraphs. This is what you're going to do. These are the reasons for separation, okay? On the DD-214, you're going to use this code and this narrative, unacceptable conduct, JNC code for officers and warrant officers. Just a little bit further down is the enlisted one, which I've mentioned before in other videos, okay? So moving along. And if we get over to, so that's the Army, big Army, then the National Guard makes their memo, which is a PPOM, Personal Operation Memorandum. It's pretty much labeled the same, number 22009, okay? And you can see this date. They're a little slow in getting their memorandum out. This is dated of May of 2022. And then if I flip to the key page, got the receipts. Hey, this is how we're going to purge the officers and warrant officers consistent with the ALARAC on their DD-214 JNC unacceptable conduct. And I believe this was consistent across all branches of services, and certainly in the Army it is.
So there you have it. And let's just show you an example of what that kind of looks like on a DD-214. So there we go. There's mine right there. The purge codes. The purge codes right here. If you can see this bottom. Unacceptable conduct JNC. For what? For following the law. For doing the right thing. For warning my chain of command that they were breaking the law to do the right thing. to do proper risk communication strategies and warn service members that you are participating with an experimental injection. We do not know the side effects, but we did know the side effects because we had the database. We had the VAERS database. We had DMED database. We had all sorts of anecdotal stories, people dropping on like flies, perfectly healthy people dropping like flies on sports fields around the world, right? People getting sick all of a sudden directly after their injections, but I digress. Anyway, so, yep, JNC, unacceptable conduct, sent to a court-martial by Yevgeny Vindman, prosecuted and then purged from the military. While Colonel Vindman finds himself in District 7, Virginia, House of Representatives. And what committee is he on? The Armed Services Committee. Anyway, our guest today, Reprimando, he's going to remain anonymous for this entire interview, and that's fine because he's still serving in public capacity, and we're going to retain his anonymity, but he goes by Freedom Fighter. We'll refer to him as Freedom Fighter for this episode. Highly decorated service member, and he's one of my brothers in civil engineering in the Air Force. I served civil engineering in the Air Force for quite a long time. He also served civil engineering. Welcome to the show, Freedom Fighter. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what happened to you during the Plandemic Purge, during the Purge codes.
Hey, Mark, man, it's good to be on with you. Sorry, my voice is a little iffy today, but I took some flights a couple of days ago, and man, it's I flew through Seattle. It was kind of like the cantina from Star Wars scene. But anyways, I've been hydrating and things, so I hope I sound all right. And
yeah.
The sound is good.
Yeah, you're good on my end, brother.
Okay, good. So yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I just got a couple things I think I need to say first. Everything I say is as I remember it happening. I kind of wrote these down, and my thoughts and opinions are my own and do not reflect those of the DoD or the Air Force. As you mentioned, I was a Air Force Master Sergeant. I was forced out at 14 years, 2 combat tours in Afghanistan, highly decorated. Man, I did all sorts of things, stationed mostly overseas. Yeah, and I would love to wear the uniform again and be reinstated, but I tell you, not right now, not with the nonsense that's being pulled right now, the different sentences that are being slipped in about, we say that we weren't coerced, and I'm sure you've seen it in the documentation in all the branches, and it is what's going on right now is pretty insane. But I served in all over the world. So yeah, I appreciate you having me on. This is, I'm excited. I'm excited. Like when I used to be playing basketball right before tip off. That's how I feel right now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on, man. And you talked about, you gave a little hint to the audience, but I want to kind of dive into what you said about this contract that's going around that the Air Force spit out. Oh, here it is. Let me share my screen real quick for the folks so they get some context in what you were just talking about.
Yeah, that would be great.
Let me share my screen right here. And we've got it right here. So Jordan Carr, former Air Force captain, she highlighted this, and it basically says, and so talk to this because you're familiar with this. You were Air Force. This is something the Air Force just put out. Talk to this if you would.
Yeah, I would love to. So this is just a ridiculous sentence. The highlighted portion that you see there is just a ridiculous thing to put in here, and it's just slipping it in for those people that are not used to reading contracts or reading every line of paperwork. And there's a lot of folks that could just kind of, they'll breeze over things and, oh yeah, I got the main points. But this is an example of reading every single line. What this does, 2 things here, putting that in. If you sign, let's say I was to sign my name to this contract for reinstatement. Number 1, I would be lying on a federal official document, which is an Article 107 under the UCMJ, which I could immediately be charged under, and I could go directly to a court-martial. Article 107, keep that in mind. And number 2, it basically waives all of my rights. I'm no longer being reinstated by signing my name to this form. What I'm saying is that I did everything willingly. And so now you can do whatever you want. It's basically starting over a new contract. Now, the reason that this is a big deal for me is because I had an indefinite enlistment until 2032.
Wow.
That was illegally canceled. And in order to force me out. So, you know, I was willing to serve and I was all out for serving until 2032, which would have been my higher tenure as a master sergeant. So I still had 10 years left on my contract when I was forced out of the Air Force.
So real quick, 14 years military, 14 years in the Air Force, you were a master sergeant, right?
Correct.
So you jumped all the way up to master sergeant, worked your way up, right?
Correct. I was a fast burner. Yep.
And they purged you as a master sergeant for
That's
the
correct.
COVID purge.
Yes.
Now going back to this post, what Jordan is saying here, she says, I cannot in good faith encourage anybody to sign their name to this form. I'm on your side. So she's talking to one of these. I want to know. She's talking to one of the DoD social media accounts, along with the Secretary of Defense. Like, hey, like, what the heck's the deal here? Come on, guys, get your crap together. I want to know who's behind this form, and what form is this? Where's the form number on this form? Where's the chain of custody on this form? Who created this form? There's got to be a chain of custody. I want to know the name of the public servant who decided that was a good idea to put that sentence in there. I want to know their name. Anyway, I digress.
Well, I do as well. And you'll find a version of this that very closely resembles this. That was the Air Force one. You'll find one for the Army and for the Navy. And of course, the Marines are a department of the Navy, so you'll find it for them as well. I've seen them.
Wow, I didn't see that. No, I don't get the correspondence. The Army doesn't correspond with me. I've seen some of my brothers and sisters receive some Army correspondence, but the Army seems to lose my Army Board of Military Corrections package. The binders go missing from the mail. I don't get case numbers for my Board of Military Corrections, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on there.
Isn't it amazing how many glitches occur when they don't want to do something?
Well, the problem is everybody who's handling this paperwork is complicit or has a bias because they went along to get along at some point in time, unless they didn't. And then the paperwork goes through because, or they're just a good human being and trying to do their job like they've been tasked to do. I don't know, but that's few and far between these days, it seems.
Well, it's concerning that a lot of the same people that were responsible for forcing us out and all the things, and we'll get into a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about today are going to sound unbelievable. When I talk about them now, it sounds like I'm nuts. To myself, I sound like I'm nuts, but these things actually occurred. And so the same people are responsible for this reinstatement stuff that were responsible for the purge.
Exactly. I want to jump into your story. Because you gave me a brief kind of synopsis on and your military record. I mean, it speaks for itself. You said, I've got your awards and decorations here: Meritorious Service Medal, your Air and Space Commendation Medal, 2 Oak Leaf clusters, which means he's got 3 of them total. Air Force Space Achievement Medal. 2. Were you Space Force? Did you switch? Did they switch you, or was it the base you were at?
No, it was the base I was at. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it was a Space Command. I'm assuming, or Space
Force.
Yeah,
their Space Force was on the base as well. So that was I'll throw the base.
Anyway, his record, his medals go on and on. The COVID purge. He's been purged, folks.
Yeah. It's still, I'll tell you, it still bothers me because I was in the Navy JROTC unit in high school. I was a commanding officer my senior year, and I'm one for the Air Force. I'm 1 ribbon short of how many I had when I was in JROTC. So that still bugs me. I'm competitive,
Yeah, no, I got you. And you were top 5% of every category, including physical fitness. Like I mentioned, awards. You've got multiple deployments, brief coverage of the DMZ job observations 2020. So let's talk about that. You were in Korea. South Korea,
Yes.
Republic of Korea in 2020, restrictions, lockdowns, spacing, George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, all that stuff playing out. So, and then also 2021, it slides into now you're considered we have extremism stand down day. Let's jump into the OSI investigation and inquiry. So, tell us about that. You were investigated by OSI. Like what happened there?
Yeah, so I was investigated. So the extremism stand down day across the DoD occurred.
Real quick, folks. Real
Yeah.
quick for the people at home. OSI, Office of Special Investigations, is basically your kind of FBI for the Air Force branch in this case, but each branch has it. Army is called CID. Anyway, so OSI investigation. Sorry.
Yeah. So they were essentially, they stood up an extremist division at OSAN, and I was there in 2019. So before all the COVID stuff, before all this nonsense, I was there. I took my family over there, and so we were there 2019. Great, did all these things, but I'll just to preface. But I'll tell you, 2019 when I did that, you mentioned that DMZ project. So when we were coming back from doing that DMZ assessment, we had to go through these sprayers, and they said it was for African swine fever, but that was October of 2019. So it kind of went, African swine fever, what are you talking about? And then in hindsight, we look back on it now, I go, oh, okay, I see what was going on already. You can kind of connect the dots, but anyway, so yeah, the OSI investigation, they April of 2021, this extremism stand down day happened across the Air Force or across the military, actually, where we had all these, we went in and we were shown videos of edited clips from CNN and MSNBC and all these. And it was basically saying, look at January 6th, Trump caused January 6th. And essentially they were trying to weed out and look for and hunt down any Trump supporters, or it didn't matter if it was proven or if you were a suspected Trump supporter, you were thrown into the pot as well. And if you, of course, this was after, December of 2020, the shots started rolling out for the COVID shots. And so if you had declined or given any type of an inkling that you were going to decline the shots, you were thrown into the bucket too.
And when you say thrown into the bucket, what does that mean?
OSI was going to start looking at you, but not just OSI. The intel units on Osan Air Base, personnel within the intel units were also weaponized, and they, along with OSI, were looking for people.
Wow. So, folks, if you're military out there and you're intel and you happen to be out of the military at this point in time, you want to tell us about that, you can come on here anonymously, or you can show your face and whatever the case is and share your story about that situation. Maybe you didn't agree with it. Maybe your command gave you orders you didn't agree with, and you kind of refused. And, I'm sure that's how a lot of people ended up getting out of the military too. There was a lot of BS going on. So a lot of people like, screw this, I'm not sticking around. So if you're one of those folks, feel free to come on the show. Tell us your story.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
sorry to interrupt.
I'll tell you, it was pretty insane. They called it an inquiry. And I'll tell you that they went around for 2 months without me even having any idea about it. They went around for 2 months. OSI interviewed my supervisor, interviewed my coworkers, interviewed my chain of command, interviewed everybody and their daddy.
Wow.
Because they were trying to paint me as an extremist and a white supremacist.
Because of your refusal to the code. Was that their kind of marker, because of your refusal to the COVID experimental injections?
Yes. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I have buddies that are black, right? They were if they declined the shots, they were being looked at as black white supremacists by OSI.
What the heck is this? A Dave Chappelle comedy show? What's going on?
I mean, you can't make this up. This is why I say a lot of this stuff sounds nuts, but it's true. This happened.
So how did you find out that they went to your supervisor, your chain of command?
Well, in May of 21, they interrogated me for an hour. I didn't know. They summoned me over there. The chief, I was working at headquarters at the time, and so I was actually responsible for a lot of CE things for all of Korea. So I was in a high level position.
7th Air Force.
Correct. Yep. So I was in charge of CE ops for all of Korea, and so it was a high level position. And so a chief, and I'll share his name later, but he had to take me over to OSI. Well, I didn't know why I was going over there. And so I get over to OSI, and they sit me down in a room, and in one of their interrogation rooms, and they have the main OSI agent questioning me was a black guy, and the one that was taking notes kind of sitting back, he did auxiliary questions. He was a white guy. So they set it up in a way to where it would they could try and paint me or back me into a corner. And they started asking me about they wanted to get this is how they phrased it. They wanted to get a better sense of my beliefs. And I asked during the hour, of course, I kind of figured it out pretty quick when, they started questioning me. They wanted me to start commenting about Black Lives Matter so that they could stick the white supremacy thing on me. And I was emotional. I was pretty upset. That was, that was 21. So that was after the extremism day and all that, where they had painted us as these people that needed to be found and basically exorcised from the military.
So yeah. What did they say prior to getting into that interrogation room? And what did they say when you showed up? Like, what did they say you were there for?
So my wife and I had at the BX, there was a painter. My wife and I had a painting of Trump made, right? Now there was paintings of Obama, there was paintings of Biden, there was paintings of all these different presidents. So we had a painting of Trump made by the painter there, and he is fantastic, by the way. Well, he displayed it, and oh my goodness, let me tell you, that sent shockwaves through of Trump derangement syndrome. I come to find out, I was told by a coworker that it was on the OSON spouses page. A picture of it was put up there, and the spouses of general officers, of colonels, and all that were calling for whoever made the painting to be found and detained immediately.
Wait. Hold on.
Oh yeah.
Hold on. So I'm sorry to laugh, man. But I know crazy. For the audience, it seems unbelievable, or it's not. I mean, for me, it's not, because I went through the shenanigans. But so you had a painting made at the base exchange, right, on post?
Correct.
Okay, from a local national that was there in one of like the gift shop kind of deals.
Yeah, he has a booth that was actually directly outside of the exchange.
So you had him paint you a picture of President Trump.
Correct.
And he wanted to display his artwork before you kind of went to purchase it, or what?
Before I picked it up, because I had purchased already, and before I went to pick it up, he displayed. Well, he had painted it kind of out in the open. He's on like a corner,
right?
And so,
of course,
people can come by and see. Oh man, this guy is fantastic. He does a lot of great paintings. He had Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force write a painting of him up there.
Right? Yeah,
not a big deal,
Well, none of it's a big deal, or none of it should be a big deal. So, how did? That's why. I got so many questions. So painting. So the paintings outside. Who engage? So you mentioned the spouses page, a lot of TDS, right?
Yep.
All that. But out of that, they want to figure out who bought and purchased the painting from this man.
That's correct. And I'll tell you, there was multiple personnel from the intel units. One of them got almost, he nearly assaulted the painter because he demanded to know who bought this painting, the name, and all that. from this paint, and the painter stood firm and told him, no, I'm not going to give out my customers' names and all that, you know. So it ended up that OSI went and looked at the CCTV cameras, and when I came to pick it up, that's how they tracked me down. Had no idea until I was sitting there being interrogated.
Okay, so when your chief escorts you over to OSI, does he tell you it's because of the painting that you bought from the base exchange?
No, he tells me he can't say why I'm going over there.
Sorry, folks. I don't know if that.
But yet he had already been interviewed, right? And what they were trying to do was they were trying to match up. And I still have everything from the extremism stand down day. I still have all the PowerPoints and all that crap that they threw out there. And they were trying to fit me onto the threat matrix that they had created, basically for anyone that they deemed to be a threat.
You want to talk about extremism? Talk about extreme level of projection here. They're using CCTV to dox the individual that purchased a painting with his own money by a local national artist on a military installation who sells and is authorized to sell paintings of portraits.
Yeah.
And our military used military assets, intelligence, OSI, your chain of command, the whole base to basically track you down to figure out that you bought a portrait. You had this man paint you a portrait of President Trump.
Correct.
And you're the extremist.
Correct. And it gets better. Let me tell you, it gets better. It gets more ridiculous. So they tell me when I go into the interrogation room, you know, it has a video up there, and the dude is taking notes. And one of the first things that they tell me is that they stood up an extremist division, and I was their first case, so they didn't know what to do with me.
Who told you that?
The OSI agent. His last name is Battle, by the way.
Battle. So
Agent Battle.
Battle. He was stationed in Korea. What time? When?
This would have been 2021.
2021. Agent Battle. Osan or Kunsan?
Osan.
Osan Air Force Base. Agent Battle investigating a master sergeant because he purchased a painting from a local national on a military installation, a portrait of President Trump.
Now, the thing is, during my interrogation, I asked 4 separate times, am I in trouble? No, we just want to get a better sense of your beliefs. I said, do I need a lawyer? Well, no, why would you need a lawyer? You're not in trouble. We just want to get a better sense of your beliefs. Wow. And I said, it sure seems like I'm in trouble. Sure seems like I need a lawyer. Well, no. And it was never an official investigation. It was an inquiry. So I can't FOIA anything from that.
Right.
Because I have no case number.
Right, because it was an inquiry. It was an inquiry because they were running shadow policy, but not actual investigations.
Yeah. And what they were doing was they were trying to tie me to this nonsense thing called QAnon. That's what they kept trying to tie me to. It ended up where I was not going to take this shit. And I ended up going back and forth. I mean, head to head with this agent. And it finally ended up with him 4 straight times. He asked me, are you involved with QAnon? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? And it was interesting because the extremism stand down day, they had first of all, we had our 3-star general that was the 7th Air Force commander, started off by telling us that 2020 was the most safe and secure election in the history of the United States, multiple times. And that if we were questioning that, then we could be looked at as being an extremist. And you could see people in the audience. You could see us. People were looking around like, what the hell is going on here? What are you talking about? You know? And then it was insane. And so what's interesting about it is, you know, after I got out of the interrogation and I was furious. And, you know, I went back, I think it was the next day, and I talked to the full bird colonel that was the director for CE at the 7th Air Force. And he told me, he said, hey, I spent an hour and a half with these guys. They questioned me, and I kept asking, where does he fit on this threat matrix? And he said, they
Wow.
couldn't tell me.
I would love to. You said the colonel, the 7th Air Force, your civil engineering director, colonel.
Director of civil engineering.
And I would love to have a conversation with him, because he seems like he has his head on straight if he was asking those type of questions, because they're legitimate. Like, what is there a crime here? Is there a crime?
Yeah.
Normally, and for the folks at home, normally what OSI does, they handle felony type criminal activity, and then your local security forces handle more of the misdemeanor and below, and they might actually help augment OSI, but OSI is actually for felony type criminal activity. But here we are investigating a master sergeant because he had a painting done of President Trump, a duly elected president, a painting done of President Trump.
It was pure chaos. Pure chaos over at OSAN. You know, I'll tell you, during 2020, it was interesting because, you know, everyone had to mask up and all this nonsense, right? Well, there was people in uniform that were allowed to wear face masks that said Black Lives Matter on them. They were selling Black Lives Matter paraphernalia on the OSAN Facebook spouses page.
Well, I mean, I mean, of course they were, because they're projecting extremism on everybody else. They're projecting what they're doing on everybody else. You want to talk about racism? You want to talk about, you know, actual extremist activity, actual violations of law, actual violations of military regulation? It's all what they were doing. They were doing this during a foreign belligerent occupancy, during what our country has gone through, which is a foreign belligerent occupancy. January 2021 was the installation of a foreign belligerent occupying power that then, and that's why we saw exactly what we saw. Up was down, down was up, left was right, right was left.
Now I bring that up about the Black Lives Matter face masks, because if someone tried to wear a face mask with the American flag on it in uniform, they were called out, said they couldn't do it.
It's wild, man. It's wild. It's so the investigation. So obviously they use doublespeak, right? Because it wasn't an investigation, it was an inquiry. So how did that conclude? Just kind of vanished.
So after my interrogation, I never heard from them again.
Wow.
Which tells me they couldn't find anything. It was a fact-finding mission, or they were searching for something and they couldn't find anything and they disappeared, and I've never heard from them again. Nothing.
Those agents should be ashamed of themselves. I mean, come on. Are you that smooth-brained that you can't figure out like what you're doing isn't in the least respect lawful and legal and correct? I mean, it's almost the equivalent of open up FISA warrants on American citizens with no with nothing. Like
it's
like a General Flynn type situation, right?
Yeah. And so it was the other thing that was interesting is the colonel, when he asked him, you know, where does he line up on this threat matrix? They couldn't tell him. They said they brought up the white supremacist thing, and he started laughing. He told me this after. He started laughing and he asked them, have you seen his family portrait? Because we're an interracial marriage and all my kids, 5 kids, all my kids are beige. And so he was in disbelief. Like, have you not looked at his family portrait? What are you talking about? You have nothing to go on, guys. You're fishing.
It goes back to what you were saying too, like a black white supremacist. Like, I mean,
you can't make it up.
So So this obviously progresses. You go into the weaponized mandates. You're well aware. I've read your documentation, your rebuttals. You were well aware of obviously your religious freedoms as a military service, your religious rights as a military service member, right?
Correct.
You're very familiar with the actual fact that you can't mandate experimental emergency use authorized products, and you informed your chain of command, you informed the colonel or whoever it was that, like, hey, there's none of these available. They're not available. You can't mandate this. You can't X, Y, and Z. So how'd that play out?
Well, I actually informed multiple colonels, multiple lieutenant colonels, multiple chiefs. I informed quite a few people. And I'll tell you, so I understand, the folks that think about it as, hey, we're in the military. What's another shot? Okay, I can understand that. That's fine. But my whole thing is, don't try to force something on me so that you feel better about yourself. That was my whole thing from the beginning. And there was a number of us. There was over 60 of us at OSAN that filed religious accommodation requests, and all we wanted was the long-term safety data. And they couldn't give it to us because it didn't exist. And that's all we asked for. Give us the long-term safety data. What is this going to do to us 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now down the line? What are we going to be looking at if we were to get this? And they couldn't give it to us. That was a huge red flag right off the bat, obviously. Right. And it was, no, just you need to get the shot. Well, give us the safety data. Of course, I knew it didn't exist, but it was, no, you need to get the shot. Well, I can tell you, I'll run you through this quickly. So 2019, I was down in the unit, the CE unit at OSAN. I won NCO of the year for 2019. I go up to 7th Air Force headquarters. I take 2020 NCO of the quarter for first quarter 2020. I take NCO of the year for 2020. I take NCO of the quarter for first quarter 2021. The mandate had not even come out yet. I said I wasn't going to get the shots if it got mandated. And overnight, I was no longer considered for awards.
0 to 0. We've seen that before. I talked with Colonel. Well, I mean, it's across the board, right? I mean, 0 to 0, right? But I talked with one of the most profound ones that I saw, obviously, along with your case and many others, Colonel Jeremy McGarry from the Army Reserves. He was stratted to make brigadier general. He had like 3 times was he a brigade commander. He was just like the top of the top, and then overnight he went from getting stratted to being a general to actually being forced out of the military and having to get out, basically.
Yeah, and I'm not unique. I mean, my experiences, my story is unique to me, but I am not unique. I mean, this happened across the board. We can see many people that went through this and worse, much worse.
Yeah, the purge for sure. It's not unique, but everybody's story is unique. But across the board, they just went on this rampage of unlawfully purging good service members, really good service members in this case, from military service.
So from there, I can tell you, the mandate came into effect in August. We all knew it was unlawful.
Yeah,
it was an illegal mandate. And it was interesting, because during this time, I think it was, 2020, President Trump mentioned hydroxychloroquine, and the media went nuts, and people, it's going to kill you. It's going to scar your heart, blah, blah, blah. Mind you, the military never stopped administering prescriptions of hydroxychloroquine for deployers due to malaria.
Mm-hmm. And that's an accurate statement, folks. I've seen the database. I've seen the actual contracts, not the database. I've seen the contracts where they contracted to purchase hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and all those therapeutics for vector-borne disease and things like that. So,
yeah, and so it went as far as I went to immunizations, and I started asking, hey, do you have Comirnaty? the or however you say it, but do you have the approved version, the licensed version? Do you have Comirnaty? No. When are you supposed to get it? We're not sure.
Yeah.
But just use this in the meantime, the whole Terry Adirham effect of interchangeable, blah, blah, blah. A CIA officer that was working at the DOD high up, and she came up with this interchangeability nonsense.
Right. Yep.
We're just going to treat it as this. So you just act like it's this and go ahead and take it.
And that
That's not
goes,
how it works.
it's not just military either. That goes for the entire populace. You were psychologically manipulated by your mainstream media, and you were experimented on. Anybody who thinks they got, I got the approved one. No, it's the approved one. Even if it was actually approved, they took, I don't know, less than 9 months to develop that. You really think that's safe and effective? Like, you really think there's, like, you didn't even question the short-term, medium side effects from taking something like that, especially something the government was saying, hey, this is good for you. Sorry to laugh, but it's sad. It's sad.
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
We laugh because it's almost
you laugh because otherwise you cry. And
yeah, that's true. It's almost like it's written in a movie script.
Yeah.
Something that you see and you're like, that'll never happen. But
it
did.
But it did.
Yep.
But
and
it
this,
did.
This is sorry, go ahead.
A lot of people still don't know it's happening, but it's still happening. These things are still being forced, mandated, manipulated onto the populace, and they're a lot of people are still gleefully lining up for their jabs, and they're not connecting the dots and why they're having some sort of autoimmunity issues that persist or randomly start out of the blue.
Well, you look at it now, and now different shot, same tactics. Now they're doing this with the flu shot.
Oh, you brought up a good point. I want to share this video real quick.
Yeah.
Yes, he brings up an excellent point. And for all my brothers and sisters still in the military, holding the line, it's not, at this point, it's not about anti-jab, anti-vaccine. It's about, does it even make sense? Are we even talking about real science anymore? Because what happened to the flu? What happened? Where'd that flu go? Check this out, folks. What's going on in the military, folks? Just a few days ago, this is a Children Health Defense, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s organization. They have a military chapter, and it says, we have heard from 100 service members who are currently being discharged or facing disciplinary action for flu shot refusals, with the chain of command denying their rights to medical and religious accommodations. So again, this continues to persist, this irrational, illogical, unscientific mandating of these jabs upon service members, and it seems like they're doing the same thing. Now, we were talking about the nuanced aspect of the COVID-19 one being completely unlawful, but there's an aspect of the fact that, like, there is no justification to pump service members with these shots on an annual basis other than the millions and billions and trillions of dollars going to big pharma. There you have it. There you have it, folks. I mean,
absolutely.
And I talked to many service members still on the inside. They've had it. They've had enough of this crap. Like, they're like, listen, and I was in the same boat. I was like, this isn't, for me, it wasn't about COVID-19 jabs. It was about all the jabs at that point. I was like, dude, none of them make sense to me, because nobody's actually justifying the need for them. We're not actually seeing real scientific data that justifies the need for these injections, especially the flu jab. I mean, every time I took the flu jab in the military, I got deathly sick the months that preceded. And guess what? Ever since I stopped taking jabs, I haven't been sick. Never mind deathly sick. I haven't been sick. Period.
Absolutely. This is a perfect time for me to bring this up. I wrote it down so that I could bring this up at some point. But I have a date, and I have a Supreme Court decision that I think is an excellent thing to include here. So June 13th of 2013, there was a Supreme Court decision regarding cDNA, complementary DNA, and it was Association for Molecular Pathology et al. Versus Myriad Genetics Incorporated et al. And this had to do with complementary DNA being in the human body. Now, what that means is complementary DNA can also be known as a modified RNA. They were in this Supreme Court decision, they were discussing with something called CBRA1 and 2. But what it came down to is if you have complementary DNA in your system, you have no human rights. You have no constitutional rights. You are considered a product of whoever owns the patent. Now, what that means for a lot of people, there's people that don't know that these COVID jabs have something called CRISPR-Cas9 in them, or CRISPR. Now, you may have watched Jurassic Park. You may have watched the movie Rampage with The Rock. These CRISPR is a gene editing technology. What they do is they splice your DNA and they lay in a synthetic strand of DNA that can be coded to whatever they want to make it. Now, remember all those people saying, there's no DNA in the shots? You guys are conspiracy theorists. You can't change someone's DNA with these. You can with CRISPR. You can recode. And so one of the things that you've heard of these turbo cancers, my mother-in-law has had 3 different types of cancers now since she took the 2 shots of Moderna after we gave her all of the info that we had, trying to warn her not to do it. We were conspiracy theorists. She got them. She's had 3 different types of cancers now. They use cancerous and damaged cells for rapid reproduction. Remember the whole thing about the T cells and the spike protein factory? You would become a spike protein factory. Well, just last night, I was looking at something that I had seen previously. It was either Sherry Tenpenny or Judy Mikovits. I cannot remember at the moment, but talking about that male's semen has now become a production factory for these spike proteins for the ones that got the shots. What's interesting is one way that you can pass this, the spike proteins and all that, is through sexual intercourse.
Well,
that was a conspiracy theory too, remember?
Well, think about this though. Mosquitoes. What do they do with mosquitoes?
Yeah.
They do the same thing with mosquitoes. They're biologically or genetically altering mosquitoes to what? Suppress the mosquito population? No, that's not to suppress the mosquito population. It's biological warfare. Sorry to warn you, but it's biological warfare. I mean, it's one of the best tools for biological warfare. So what happens?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So anyone that's been through ECAC or evasion and conduct after capture, any type of POW training, we all that have been through that. I did. And
so I got to ask you.
Yeah,
we're not gonna go into details about that training because it's classified. But
right,
everything you went through the past 5 years, and obviously specifically when you were in the military, January 2021 on. I mean, were there patterns that laid out from that training that you received?
Yeah. So when I did my psych eval for the VA, when I was about to transition out of the Air Force, I mentioned to the psych evaluator that I had been through that training, and in that training, one thing and this is not a classified portion, but one thing they teach you is when you are taken captive, you will have something put over your face or over your head. That is to make you an object. It is to dehumanize you. You've seen it in the Bourne movies. You've seen it in all these things. When you get tortured or waterboarded, they put something over your face or they keep you covered, right? And that is to dehumanize you so that you are not a somebody to them. Your whole first goal in life is to get that bag off your head or that mask off of your face. And it's because you want to become human or humanized to your captors. So they have to look you in the eye and they can no longer see you as an object. And what do you think the masks were meant to do? That's psych warfare.
Oh yeah, it's complete psychological warfare. I went through the training as well, and I've said this before. It's everything I learned in that training was what I never used on the contingency environment in which I took it prior. So I went to the training for a contingency environment in Africa, but none of what I learned there I had to apply there. Where I had to apply it was from 2020 until 2023, and still to this day, from my own government, my own individuals wearing the same service uniform with the same American patch with the same U.S. Army tapes coming at me. And that's why I go back to foreign belligerent infiltration, foreign belligerent occupation. Our country was attacked. It was an act of war. And what happened after that was an installation of an occupying force, which did everything in their power to take the individuals that were going to put a wrinkle in their agenda and get them out of the way, aka yourself, myself, the hundreds of thousands of other service members, not to mention your public servants, your school teachers, your police, your fire department, all of those public servants trying to do the right thing during the foreign belligerent occupying force was the exact reason they acted the way they did. And then going back to what you're saying, the masking, that's a solid point. Dehumanizing, dehumanizing the population.
Yeah, and it wasn't just us. It was our children. I'll tell you, at the school on Osan Air Base, the Dodea school, they were starting to tell our children that if they had a white father, they were oppressed. My kids came home and told me this, and we pulled them out of the school.
Wow.
Because of this, and started homeschooling them. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. They had these kids doing things like wearing masks, but then they had to carry around a pane of plexiglass. And if they wanted to talk to another student, they had to put it up between their faces. I mean, it was insane. But they were doing it to our children too. It wasn't just us.
Yeah, it goes back to captured. We were captured, completely captured. And it was evading the captors the entire time. That was my mindset, evading the captors, and use my training that the military gave me, act lawfully, act legally, conduct the military regulations in which I was trained to execute. All of that training came into play. Every single bit of it came into play. And I was just a bug guy. I was just an entomologist, but military's military. You join the military to serve and to take an oath to protect the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. And that is the core reason why we serve in the military. It's not our specific, jobs, even though people get, pigeonholed into that sort of mentality of careerism. It's not about a career. It's about military service. That's why you're called a service member, not a career member. And so, but that mindset very, very much is persistent today. That careerist mindset, that climbing the ladder and stomping on everybody in the path to getting where these individuals want to go is very much there. But we see a lot of these individuals start being discharged from the military or fired from their positions, specifically wing commanders and things like that. But hey, I want to have you back on. We got to close this show out. We're running over time. Last words for the audience.
I'm going to use 3 words. These are the same 3 words that I said my last day in uniform when I got coined by a full bird colonel for doing such a great job at my 3.5 years at Osan Air Base. And he didn't want to let me speak, but there were friends of mine that were there and asking for a speech. And I said, look, I got 3 words for you. Honor your oath.
Amen. Well, with that, folks, check him out. His X account is below. Go follow him. Give him a share, brother. We appreciate you coming on. God bless you, and much love. Folks, check us out next. Check us out, freedomfighter1776.com. You can go over there. You can find more information. You can connect with other Patriot resources. There it is right there, freedomfighter1776.com. You can go over to freedomfinancial1776.com, use some of the resources, do your own research, and understand how this financial system's shaken out and where some of this new technology can be applied. Anyway, God bless, much love. Catch you on the next episode.